Hello there, good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I'm the biblical translator, and today's food for the heart is about regret. So, I'd like to spend a little time talking about regret. I don't think there are many people who reach adulthood without collecting at least a few regrets along the way. Some are small. You wish you'd taken a different job. You wish you'd spoken up sooner. You wish you'd looked after your health a little better. You wish you'd given better advice to a friend who was desperate. Then there are the heavier regrets, the relationship you stayed in too long, the opportunity you were too frightened to take, the words you said in anger that you can never take back, the person you loved but you never told. Regret has a way of sitting in the corner of our lives. It doesn't always demand attention. Sometimes it waits until everything else has gone quiet. You're washing the dishes, driving to work, lying awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, and suddenly your mind takes you back to a moment from 5, 10, or even 40 years ago. It can feel as though you're standing in exactly the same place all over again, except this time you know what you should have done. Regret often whispers that because you got something wrong, somehow your whole life has lost credibility. But life isn't written like that. One chapter isn't the whole book. We sometimes imagine that everyone else has made perfect decisions while we are the only ones carrying memories we'd rather erase. The truth is, if we could all lay our regrets on the table, there wouldn't be enough room to sit down. Every one of us has moments we'd rewrite if we could. The difference isn't whether we have regrets, the difference is what we do with them. Some people let regret become their permanent address. They keep revisiting the same moment until it feels more real than the life they're living now. Others allow regret to become a teacher instead of a jailer. The event stays in the past, but the wisdom becomes into the future. That doesn't mean the pain disappears overnight. Some regrets leave scars that remain tender for a very long time, but scars are different from open wounds. A scar remains a scar reminds you where healing has taken place. The open wound keeps bleeding into today. I sometimes think regret behaves like someone constantly looking in the rearview mirror while trying to drive forwards. Of course, you need the mirror. It tells you where you've been, but if you spend the whole journey staring into it, eventually you're going to have an accident because you missed what's right in front of you. Looking back has its place. Living back there doesn't. We can spend energy searching for life we think we've lost through regret without noticing that today's opportunities are already sitting right in front of us. We become so busy mourning yesterday that we stop recognizing what today is offering. Another need hidden inside regret is the need for forgiveness. Sometimes we need forgiveness from someone else. Sometimes we need to ask God for forgiveness. But often the hardest forgiveness is the one we struggle with to offer ourselves. We can be remarkably compassionate towards other people. We tell our friends, you did your best with what you knew at the time. Yet when it comes to ourselves, we suddenly become the harshest judge in the courtroom. We expect the younger version of ourselves to have possessed the wisdom we only gained years later. That's an impossible standard. The person you were then didn't know what the person you are now knows. Experience has taught you things that books never could. That's how life works. We grow because we live. The Apostle Paul understood something about leaving the past where it belonged. He wrote about forgetting what is behind and pressing on toward what is ahead. I don't think he meant pretending the past never happened. He knew his own history only too well. I think he meant refusing to let yesterday govern tomorrow. God has always seemed far more interested in what people become than in who they once were. Throughout the Bible, we meet ordinary people whose stories could easily have ended in regret. Peter denied Jesus. David made terrible choices. Moses carried guilt for years, yet none of them were abandoned because of their failures. But then I thought of Lot's wife, who had no time to regret looking back because she turned into a pillar of salt. And I think there are three different looking backs. Reflection looks back to learn. Regret looks back wishing we had acted differently. Longing looks back because we still want what we've left behind. Only the last one keeps us from moving forward. Looking back isn't always wrong. We all look back. We remember childhood. We remember loved ones. We remember, wonderful songs that I play on a Friday, 7 till 9 on Lovers Rock Radio. We remember mistakes so we don't repeat them. The question isn't whether we look back. The question is whether we're trying to live back there. We don't always see things clearly until after the moment has passed. Hindsight has remarkable eyesight. It notices everything we couldn't see while we were actually living through it. That's why comparing yesterday's decision with today's knowledge will almost always make us feel unfairly guilty. Wisdom usually arrives after the lesson, not before it. I have found that regret often softens when gratitude begins to grow. Gratitude doesn't deny what happened, it simply reminds us that lives contain more than one painful moment. Yet, yes, perhaps you made mistakes, so has everybody else. Yes, perhaps you lost something precious. Many people have. But perhaps also you have become kinder and more compassionate because of those failures. Perhaps you've learned to notice pain in other people because you've experienced pain yourself. Sometimes the very thing we wish had never happened becomes the reason we're able to understand someone else's tears. Regret loses some of its power when it begins producing wisdom instead of shame. Maybe today you're carrying a regret that no one else knows about. Maybe it's something that still catches you by surprise years later. If that's you, I hope you'll remember this. Your mistake is something you did. It's not your identity. Your regret is something you carry. It is not who you are. Every new sunrise quietly announces that life is still moving. Grace is still available. Growth is still possible. There are still conversations to have, kindness to show, and lessons to learn and joys to discover. We cannot edit yesterday, but we can still write today. And sometimes today's small, faithful choices become tomorrow's greatest source of peace. So be gentle with yourself. Learn what regret came to teach you, but don't invite it to become a lifelong companion. Thank it for the lesson, and then watch it continue its journey in a different direction. After all, the story isn't over while you're still living here. So take care of yourself, take care of each other until the next meal. I'm going to leave it there and hope you don't have moments of regret, because it's like, things that you can't change. There's always this saying, worrying is about things you cannot change. You should only focus on things that you can. And regret is one of those things. I used to regret selling my house in Stopsley, and I regretted for years. And I think only recently I thought, but Myrna, you can recreate what you had there in your own home. And then once I came to that realization, Myrna, don't regret. This is a new opportunity. And I recreated what I was regretting. It changed my whole mindset, the whole of the way I felt. It made me feel so light, so grateful. And so, I stopped regretting and I started grabbing the opportunities that come my way. And I'll continue to do that, and so should you. Regret is fruitless. So I hope you log into my station tomorrow, 7 till 9 on Lovers Rock Radio. Bye-bye.